Alrighty, guys. So I got in a conversation earlier today on Reddit with a guy named Avery, and we had some interesting discussions about how the aerodynamics work in 1.05. And the theory was that the upper speed limit from the original versions of KSP were a little outdated. So I'm a big fan of the whole 100 meters per second every 10,000 kilometers or so. So, at the ground level you're going 100, at 10K you're going 200, at 20K you're going 400, double your speed every 10 kilometers. At 30K, 800. After that, it's pretty much floor it because you're going to be running around 24-ish, 100 whenever you get orbital velocity. So, that's the way I like to do it. I also tend to start around 50 to 100 meters per second and start slowly tipping left. I gauge that about 5 degrees every 1,000 kilometers up until you hit 45 degrees pitched over, which normally should be around 10K. And then from there, it's more like 1 or 2 degrees every kilometer. The point being is you want to be flat level by the time you're at 70 kilometers. So whatever that is, 40, 10 kilometers to 7 is 50 kilometers. So yeah, 1 degree every kilometer. Whatever. It's not really like rocket science. So what we're going to do today is we're going to test a couple of things. I'm going to build some identical rockets, and we're going to go see, basically shoot straight up, and we're going to see how much speed and aerodynamic profile make a difference. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the small guidance unit, and we're going to start with a really super basic rocket. Now the only thing I have currently installed is Mr. Jeb, and I'm going to put one on here just so that we can track our progress. And I'm going to build a rocket that roughly has the delta V to get just into glitch. Go away. To get just into orbit. So we're going to keep it real super simple. I'm going to try and see if we can do this maybe with a Reliant engine. That should give us 3,200. Okay. Let's see if we can get roughly 3,500 in Atmo. And we want a thrust to weight ratio that is way too high, but that's okay. That'll make us go really super fast, which means we'll have to throttle down. So, next we need to look at Aero stuff. And the aerodynamic nose cone runs 0.03 tons. So we're going to probably use that as our basic aerodynamic rocket, unless we have a better nose cone option. I like the advanced nose cone better. He's prettier. I might have to test all three of these. So this is 0.075 tons and this is 0.03 tons. So we have a 0.45 ton difference that we need to account for. So what can we add to our rocket that'll be 0.05 tons? I should have thought about this prior to starting the video. Ooh, that's exactly, and it's fairly blunt, the same weight as, hush you. There's the other nose cone.
Pep it up a bit.
My wife apparently thinks I need to pep it up a bit. Woo! Whatever that means. Alrighty, so I had to tinker around with part weights here a little bit to get these to be exactly the same amount. So here we have the Test 1 blunt, and as you see it's got 3 solar panels in there that each total 0.025 tons, and the exact vessel mass is 8.275 tons, so that's what we're shooting for. So that's Test 1 blunt. Test 2 with the small cone, 2 batteries and a single solar panel. The batteries are 0.01 and the solar panel is 0.025, so 8.275 tons. And the third test is the long cone, and the long cone by itself weighs 0.075 tons. So we'll still end up with 8.275 tons. So we have three identical rockets that all have just enough atmo delta V to get into space. Obviously, they've got plenty to be left over. We could circularize orbit. We could even not really go any significant places, but we could play around in orbit with this. So we're going to test them all. We're going to load up T1 and we're going to launch. Alright, so the purposes of all these tests, we are literally just going to turn on SAS, go fast, max throttle, and aim straight up. Okay, obviously this is not going to work right. Back to the drawing board. Alrighty, so apparently because the blunt end rocket will not fly straight no matter what I do, we've reconfigured it with 4 fins, increased the mass a little bit, and we did the exact same thing on the other 2 rockets. So they all weigh 8.423 tons now. Yeah, I had a feeling that that probably wouldn't work, but it's interesting to note that I'm getting Mach effects here, doing like 300 meters per second at about 4K or 3K. This kind of backs up my claims earlier about the max airspeed. You basically need to be going slower than Mach effects. I'll do some more tests later on about this. Ah, we're starting to flip. Ah! Alrighty, we're going to try this again with actual steerable fins on this. These are just the cheap first tier ones, but they work really good for rocket fins. Nothing else has changed other than the mass and the fins. The Reliant doesn't have any gimbal and nothing. I don't know. The blunt end just really hates it because what's happening is up around 30 kilometers we're getting re-entry effects, and it's way too much air damming in front of the vehicle to keep it going straight. So, if you notice here on the left, by the way, I'm saving every change I make as a subassembly so that I can make the identical change to the next rockets. So we just grab the bottom, drop it, grab the subassembly, put it back on, so we know that it's being exactly the same on all of our test vehicles. You know, for science. It's funny to note, though, that actually after adding the fins, our delta V total is less than what an amateur would need to get to orbit. Technically, a really good player can get to orbit with 3200 or less. A computer can get to orbit with 3000, like KOS or something. But average Joe Schmo probably should shoot for about 3500. Hopefully with the controllable fins, we'll end up with a better ascent this time. Alrighty, our final change worked fantastic. It ran out of fuel just about 68 kilometers up. Just straight as an arrow the whole way up, and our final apoapsis is 851.641. Alrighty, second burst same as the first, max throttle, enable SAS, check our fuel levels, launch. Alrighty guys, it's important to note that one didn't run out of fuel until about 76 kilometers, and whoa, look at that. 1 million, let's go ahead and make this up on screen, 1,075,900 and glitchy 30, 20 something. So you can see just adding a simple nose cone gave us like what, 225,000 meters further out? I mean that's dang guys, that's a lot. But keep in mind, I'm pushing through the atmo at absolute max velocity in this case with almost 3 to 1 thrust to weight ratio, or 2.5 to 1. Let's go ahead and do the final test with the long cone. And let's go ahead and see what happens here. I estimate it's probably going to do as good as T2 did. I mean, it might do a little bit better. It's a little more aerodynamic, but I estimate we're not going to gain as much different here from the blunt end rocket. On a complete side note, these things are really pretty whenever they're on fire. Alrighty, so we ran out of fuel somewhere in the same ballpark as the other one, but look at that! That's not quite as stark a difference as the first one, but that's still considerable. I mean, I'm actually really impressed that the game makes that much of a difference in just the length of the nose cone. Alrighty guys, sorry about that, I had a recording malfunction. In this particular rocket, you'll notice the vessel mass is almost a tenth of a ton larger than our other vehicles, so this is not a truly scientific test, but it will tell us if some of our hunches are correct. What? Staging! Alrighty, so burnt out the same as the others, and we are 1053. Okay, so that is not too bad. That's a little worse than having the rounded nose cone on there, but then again, that makes sense for weight. So long and light, well, for multiple rockets of the same weight, the longer nose cone performs way better. So again, our numbers for blunt tip were 851,641, and our numbers for the long cone tip were 1,163,740. That is awesome. Just a little napkin math here. That is a difference of 312,000, almost 312,100, 99, whatever. Alrighty, so all tests conclude. The T3 is the winner. Yay! So that's going to be our test, dummy, that we're going to... Dummy. That's going to be our test that we graduate to the next round of tests. We're going to do some more examples with blunt versus rounded tipped boosters that burn out in very early stages. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do this and keep the same rocket design. I'll be right back. Alrighty, we're back. And so now what I've done is I've taken our handy dandy trusty T3 pointy rocket, and I've stuck a couple of trash can boosters on the sides of it, and you'll notice that I'm using the same little service bay I used earlier that's got a couple of solar panels in it, so that we know the math will work out to the exact same weight as a pointy tip. So as you can see, the blunt booster that we're using here has a total vessel mass of 12.075, and our pointy booster, same vessel design, has a mass of also 12.075. Now, there's going to be a certain amount of human error here, so because I will have to stage at exactly the right time. So you'll have to forgive me. I may let MechJeb fly this just to make sure it's flown exactly the same way each time. But as you can see here, we should have 500 delta V or more when we get up there, less differences from Atmo. And these should burn off pretty quickly because the burn time on these things is only like, I can't remember, it's very, very short. I'll have to go look it up. Either way, the point being is that the boosters themselves are 200 Kerbucks. The cost of the cones, for crying out loud, are more than that. So I mean, the decoupler, for Christ's sake, is double what the booster costs. So we will definitely, you spend more money making these aerodynamic than you actually waste on the booster itself. So the assumption here is that it's okay to leave them blunt. That's my assumption, because I leave my solid rocket boosters blunt as long as they're going to burn out fairly quickly. You know, now the big tall guys, where are they at? Not these guys. Those guys burn out in about 42 seconds. I looked this up earlier, and those I usually leave blunt. But these big old long guys, they take a long time to burn out. So those guys I put tips on because the Atmo actually, has a bigger impact for them. But ones just to get you off the pad, I think it shouldn't matter that much in the end. So we're gonna go ahead and fly these guys and see what happens. Alrighty, we're back, and you notice that MechJeb is slowly taking over all of my screen. So right now we've actually got the ascent guidance up, and I'm about to engage MechJeb's autopilot. I am not limiting to terminal velocity at all. I'm not basically limiting anything, just I want MechJeb to do exactly what we've been doing. I want him to floor it. I'm going to auto up, turn SAS on. I know that it's going to turn off as soon as I enable MechJeb, but whatever. And I don't know if there's a glitch. There used to be a glitch where it wouldn't auto stage properly, but I'm using a lot of electricity power, so we better launch this guy. Now it's kind of interesting to point this out, actually. I might leave this whole section live. MechJeb is following the desired ascent path. We were talking about this earlier about 5 degrees per 1,000 meters or so. You basically want to be going 45 degrees about 10 kilometers up, and then you want to turn very, very slowly after that. Mr. Jeb here is going to demonstrate. Now, later on, once we figure out which of these two designs works, we're going to talk about terminal velocity, and we're going to do some tests. And we're going to do a couple of tests with basically the same rocket, flooring it, and then limiting the terminal velocity, just to see what our differences are. We also might use a... What the hell are you doing, Jeb? What the fuck? Alright guys, MechJeb's a jerk. I have not used the autopilot in a very long time. I guess it does weird things now. Either just it doesn't like my rocket, whatever. Either way, so I'm going to try and do this manually with as little human error as possible. Either ways, I'm just going to basically hit it stage as soon as they run out of fuel, and then I'm going to lock my rocket to the prograde vector and just go straight up, I guess. Why not? Alrighty, our results from T5 were just over 2 million. Alrighty, here's our next test with the pointy booster rocket T6. Same thing, just going to turn on SAS, let it go straight up, and stage as faithfully as I can. Alright, hopefully you guys can all agree that that's probably as fast as human reaction can allow. I mean, it's as fast as MechJeb can allow. It's within a quarter of a second. Either way. Alright, we're done. Now let's take a look. Alright. So with our boosters, our pointy boosters, we did make a little bit of a difference. 2,122,000. 320-ish, something like that. Alright there, finally figured out what was going on. Apparently, I keep forgetting I use 0 and dot on my numpad as my record and not record keys. So every time I've been typing down these numbers, I'm killing the video. Awesome. Either way, so our final numbers were 2,006,330 for T5 and 2,122,320 for T6. That was a difference of 115,990 meters. So that's a bit. That's decent. That's very, very decent. But what does that mean in delta V? Like, let's see what we can find out. I'm going to try and see if we can figure another way to test this. Be right back. Alrighty, so let's all just forget MechJeb for right now because its ascent profile is correct, but it's really being stupid for some reason. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. There's two different ascent profiles that have been suggested to me. Obviously, there's the way I do it, and then one suggestion is to kick it over to 10 degrees and then lock to the prograde vector, just floor it. Let it go as fast as it can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our same rocket model that we've been using. I'm going to do that until my apoapsis gets up to 72-ish kilometers. Once again, human error. And then I'm going to get up there and do a MechJeb circularization so we know that we do exactly the amount of right amount of delta V to circularize. And then we're going to try and do it limiting speed. And then, or we can try and do it with the 5 degrees per 1,000 kilometers thing like I suggest. Either way, we're going to see what's going to happen. It's going to be fun. Alrighty guys, I a little late there, caught it at 73.3. As you can see, we got a very steep arc here. So roughly about here, 30 seconds away from there, I'm just going to go ahead and use MechJeb to do the circularization. And we'll come back to delta V and see what happens. Alrighty, so after our circularization burn, we have 318 meters per second delta V left remaining, which is roughly the kick that our boosters gave us. So that's nice. Not really a whole lot saved there by going full throttle, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. So we need to do at least two more tests. I remembered one a minute ago. I'm going to go ahead and do the second test, trying to kind of roughly limit the acceleration along the same flight path that I think it should be. So I'm going to have to feather the throttle manually, and we're going to see how much difference we have here. The third test, however, I'm going to go back to the original suggestion specs. He had suggested a thrust to weight ratio of your ascent stage of 1.5, which is pretty standard. I tend to use 1.3. I like them a little bit slower. So what I'm going to do is, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go back, modify the rocket so that the liquid fueled stage has a thrust to weight ratio of 1.5 initially, and obviously it's going to have a higher thrust to weight ratio higher up, but we can kind of hand wave that. But and then I'm going to do this exact same test again. Alrighty guys, you can see here I'm on my way up and I'm limiting my speed to roughly 200 meters per second below 10k, and gonna sit there and double that at 10k and then double it again, and so on and so forth. And we're gonna see what happens. We're doing the whole lock to prograde vector just as they recommended. I'm getting a little high on speed here. Shouldn't matter. Actual terminal velocity, according to the stats, is 240 meters per second at 10k. It's actually kind of funny because you find out how much fuel you really sip here whenever you're doing this. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it some more gas. Alrighty, so this is our third try. We have thrust limited the liquid fuel booster to 59.5, roughly 2/3 throttle. And you'll notice that gives us a nice little liquid fuel thrust rate ratio of 1.5. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing again. We're going to stage full throttle. We're going to kick over as soon as we can to 10 degrees, lock prograde, and just let it go from there. There we go again, human error. I was kind of a little late on the draw, so 74.5 kilometers. But man, it's got most of the circulation done already. Now we've got 908. We got quite a lot of delta V left at this point, so we're just coasting up to Apoapsis. And Apoapsis. And we're gonna go ahead and see how much we got left over. Let's go ahead and get our Mr. Jeb maneuver planner here. Let's go ahead and get our circularization burn created. And that looks like it's going to take a very paltry amount of delta V. So looks like this one is definitely the winner. So interesting point actually. The airspeed is actually much faster than I originally estimated. Obviously I'm wrong. That's okay. I don't mind. The airspeed I think is roughly double what my original estimate was. So I was going, what, 300, almost 400 meters per second at 10k and not seeing any Mach effects yet. So it sounds like, yeah, it's probably double. So, but I was seeing Mach effects at 35 kilometers going 900, 30 kilometers going 900 a minute ago. I'll have to go check the tape. Either way, the point being is that you can go a little faster lower down. And there you go. Speed control descent, you end up with 548 meters per second left. Now, reflecting back on the argument, dude's 100% correct. Like, according to the argument, if you set it to 1.5 thrust to weight ratio and then just tip it over to prograde, lock it, and full throttle, which is the exact same thing as my argument of saying that limit your throttle. But of course, I'm using an unlimited engine versus a limited engine, so I think we're basically saying the same thing. Either way, there you go. That's an extra 250 meters per second. That's enough to like bounce around a couple of different biomes on Minmus, or maybe not crash into the planet and litho break if you're going to Moon. Um, that's enough to make a difference. And a little bit of napkin math here. Comparing our leftover delta V to our start delta V of 370 meters per second vacuum delta V, we end up with a 3452 delta V to get to the ascent when we floored it, and a 3222 to get to circular when we took our time. And that's nice. I mean, 3200 is basically on paper what it's supposed to be, and 3000 is quite literally the best that can be. Well, 29 and some change. But my point being is, a little less shy of 3000 is the best that a computer program can do it. So 3200 is pretty dang good for a human being, just using the built-in autopilot. Now, a couple of points about this. The built-in autopilot isn't available in the early game. You have to have leveled up a Kerbal Pilot, or you have to have unlocked one of your higher tier probe cores. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at this real quick. Prograde Retrograde. So the Hex has it. Octo does not. Neither does the QBE. Obviously, the Octo 2 has almost everything. These guys both have it. Obviously, the Stay Putnik doesn't. So the point being is there's a couple of cores there in the beginning that don't even have it. But once you get the Hex, I mean, the Hex is pretty early in the tech tree. It's not terrible, and it's not really too hard to get a Kerbal to that stage. Once you get Jeb up there in orbit and you orbit the planet one time, it'll unlock it. So, right, in Sandbox. Either way, once Jeb gets up there and he levels up to level 1, he should have prograde, which means this is a very, very, very easy method to do this for new players. So I'm going to go take a look at tech tree stuff and see if I can figure out when these methods are easier. Alright again guys, so I went ahead and took a look at the tech tree, and the Hex core here is pretty far into the tech tree. That's on the 160 level, so you have to have already unlocked the Science Center once to even get that far. The first nose cone is right up here. It's pretty early in the game. The sharper one is... Okay, finally, there it is. The advanced nose cone. So the advanced nose cone is on the 90 tier. But even still, I mean, the difference is whenever you're looking at boosters versus your main rocket. I mean, the main rocket having a nose cone is obviously a big, big benefit, as we saw. But of course, your capsule right there is basically a nose cone. Put that on there, put your standard parachute on there, and bam, instant nose cone. So you're not really going to have to worry about that until you've got some of the tech tree unlocked. And realistically, you get the small nose cone right here, which we already know was a very, very good performance difference. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and do a little bit of math here. Alright guys, so I did a little bit more math, and our best, our blunt tip rocket design was actually 74% or 73% of the efficiency of our pointed tip design. Our round nose cone design, as in the short nose cone that you get earlier in the game, was 92% of the efficiency of the advanced nose cone. So still really, really close. And I did some math on the nose cone booster designs with the advanced nose cone, and our blunt boosters with the exact same weight as our nose cone boosters was only 94% of our max height. Now I'm not sure once again what that does in terms of delta V. I haven't done those tests yet, but I haven't also calculated what would happen if just you take the nose cones off and don't account for the extra weight. I'd be interested to see if that actually makes up that other 6%. I'm going to test that again. Alrighty guys, I got done with my test without the accounted for weight, and it's fiddled around here a little bit, but our immediate height directly after disabling the or running out of fuel rather, was 2,113,000 on the dot. So I'm going to go ahead and do the math here real quickly, and that ends up being 99%. As a matter of fact, this isn't even crazy enough. This is 99.5%, 0.56% of the efficiency of using the nose cone for the exact same way, for the weight of the nose cone. So again, I remind you that was 0.075 tons. That's less than a hundredth of a ton per booster, and just the difference between having a nose cone and not having a nose cone, the boosters are only on for a couple of seconds anyways. Less than half a percent, guys. That's blunt tip boosters, man. Yeah, why bother? The dang nose cones cost more than the boosters. Now, I'll have to try this again on much, much, much larger rockets and see, because some of those rockets carry those boosters up 5 or 10,000 feet or kilometers, meters, 5 or 10,000 meters. But yeah, I don't see the reason to put nose cones on there just for the cost alone. If we're talking about SRBs, they're cheap. The cost alone is ridiculous. So yeah, I'm not gonna do that. And SRBs are cheap, guys. If it hasn't been explained, SRBs are ridiculously cheap. I'll go back here and show you what I was talking about online earlier. Take our test rocket here we've been using, right? Let's get all this out of the way. Now let's look at a solid fuel booster, right? Our rocket right now costs $38.20. We put that solid fuel booster on there, 4,670. Delta V stats. We got a total delta V of 3081, right? For 850 Kerbucks. Now, how do we get that comparatively with liquid fuel? We'll put a FLT 800 on there, stick a Reliant on there. We're already going to get more delta V just because liquid fuels are more efficient. So we got 3208 delta V, which is 200, yeah, more, what? Alright, for stupidity's sake, just the game glitched on me and deleted the node for some reason. So, liquid fueled booster right here, we've got, and I simplified the rocket a bit, we've got 3307 vac delta V, and pull that guy off, throw the vac booster on there, 3174. So, it's a marginal difference, 150. The important thing though is that back has almost a much larger thrust to weight ratio on the pad than, not really a whole lot larger, but this is the back is, I believe, 250 on the pad, and the Reliant is 200 on the pad. So that's enough. I mean, if you're using a lot of these as initial boosts, but look at the cost: $5,220 for this little guy, and $4,170. So $1,000 difference. I mean, this booster costs about as much as that fuel tank. And then you add on the $1,100 engine on top of that. So it's just for the first stages, they're going to get destroyed like 15, 20, 30 seconds after launch anyways. That booster burns for 42 seconds. It's just not worth it. They're gone anyways. Now these guys, these kick in for quite a long time. These guys burn, I want to say like 90 seconds or a minute. But even still, let's look at this. This guy is 3,545 meters per second delta V, and it's got 600 roughly thrust at launch. So let's see, how can we do that elsewhere? Nah, you're way too big. Probably gonna end up with this guy. He's the closest one, but he's kind of fat. So, well, we'll use him. This is gonna be a bad comparison, but whatever. Whatever, close enough. Okay, so to give you this is the closest we can get. 10,170 for that. $6,000. I mean, $4,000 difference. $4,000 difference for about the same amount of LTV, 35, 45. Thrust ratio is 2.83. Now, the kicker here is the thrust to weight ratio is way higher here because there's so much less fuel required to do the same thing. I mean, to get the same thrust to weight ratio, we'd have to put this tank on it. I lied. Yeah, we'd have to get twice as much fuel tank to get roughly the same thrust, well, still a little bit higher, and we get 1,000 more delta V out of that. But look at the cost, right? So for boost stages, initial boost stages, SRBs are the way to go, um, especially because they're thinner, they're smaller. Just slap them on there. They're cheap. But for your center stack, obviously liquid fuel, they don't want to do that now. Let's see other stupid stuff you can do with boosters. Some of you guys might not know, but in the current version of Kerbal, you don't really have to decouple boosters. This one will blow up the other one, and it'll work like a decoupler. It's hilarious. So like my very first to orbit crafts always look like this, and they're dumb looking, and they will totally work sometimes. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a attitude controller or a SAS module in here, and these things work, and they're dumb, and it's hilarious. Alright, this is one of my favorite stupid craft designs. Oh! Oh, staging, Christ! Oh, how long have I been playing this game? You'd think I'd know by now. Dirk, dirk, dirk. And just once that guy burns out, just bam! And this has the side benefit of being explodey and sounding awesome. Now, downside here is that you really, really, really gotta watch your speed here. It's very easy, as you can see, to get up to terminal velocity. Let's see, what was that? A little less than 3,000. Okay, there you go. This was a really stupid test. I mean, obviously, I'm going way too dang fast. Way too fast. But I mean, geez, look at that. I mean, like for your first couple of contracts, yeah, whatever. Um, it's great. Like you just take the capsule and a parachute and a whole bunch of those trash can boosters, and you can bam, you can make it out into space very early on. And if you get really, really creative and just like leave one booster on there, you could get kind of close to getting an orbit. Like it depends on how dumb you want to be, but it's possible. Oh, I'm probably rattling at this point. I need to cut it. All right, guys. Well, it's been Snake. It's been fun. I think I've answered a ton of questions. I don't know. Thanks. Peace out.